F-84 Thunderjet was a handful from the moment pilots strapped in. The J-35 engine's unpredictable surges and chronic fuel leaks meant every takeoff was tense. Vibration rattled the cockpit, and JATO bottle explosions on the ramp were a real threat. The straight wings limited maneuverability, and the aircraft's tendency to stall on approach made landings nerve-wracking. Pilots never fully trusted the Thunderjet, knowing a routine sortie could end in a fireball. F-80 Shooting Star brought jets to the front line, but pilots quickly learned to fear its engine's sudden flameouts. The Allison J-33 could quit without warning, especially at altitude or after rapid throttle changes. The early ejection seat was unreliable, and several fatal training accidents haunted squadrons. Flying the F-80 meant constant anxiety. Every climb, every turn, every landing was shadowed by the possibility of silence and a dead stick. F-94 Starfire was a trainer turned interceptor that felt like a compromise in the cockpit. The heavy radar and rocket pack made the nose sluggish, and pilots struggled with poor visibility and unreliable afterburners. Night and bad weather missions were especially dangerous, with the aircraft prone to sudden stalls and electrical failures. Many pilots dreaded being assigned to the Starfire, knowing it was unforgiving when the weather turned. F-89 Scorpion was a brute of a night fighter, but its size and weight made it slow to respond. The twin engines were notorious for flameouts, and the complex electronics often failed at the worst moments. Pilots reported wing flexing at high speeds and a tendency to wallow in turbulence. The Scorpion's heavy controls and frequent system failures left crews exhausted and wary of every sortie. F-86D Sabre Dog looked like a winner, but its radar and rocket pack brought constant headaches. The added weight and altered aerodynamics made the jet unpredictable on approach, and the fire control system often failed in combat. Pilots complained about sluggish handling and unreliable weapons, especially in bad weather. The Sabre Dog's reputation for sudden, inexplicable malfunctions made it a jet to be endured, not enjoyed. F-84F Thunderstreak promised speed with its swept wings, but the J-65 engine was a pilot's nightmare. Compressor stalls and engine fires were common, and the aircraft's tendency to enter violent spins at high Gs made dogfighting dangerous. Several fatal crashes were linked to structural weaknesses in the wings. Even after upgrades, the Thunderstreak's reputation for sudden, catastrophic failure kept pilots on edge. F-3H Demon was the Navy's first missile fighter, but its underpowered Westinghouse engine made every carrier launch a gamble. The jet struggled to get airborne, and engine failures were frequent. Pilots called it the lead sled for its poor climb and heavy handling. Carrier landings were especially stressful, with the Demon's sluggish response and high sink rate making every approach a test of nerves. MiG-19 was the Soviet Union's first supersonic fighter, but its twin engines had short lifespans and were prone to flameouts. The aircraft was unstable at high speeds and difficult to land safely, with frequent hydraulic failures and a cramped, hot cockpit. Pilots dreaded the MiG-19's unpredictable behavior, knowing that a single misstep could lead to disaster on takeoff or landing. Su-7 was a rugged ground attack jet, but its primitive landing gear collapsed easily on rough fields. The high landing speed and poor low-speed handling made it unflyable from many forward bases. Pilots struggled with limited visibility and unreliable brakes, and the Su-7's accident rate was high. Many crews considered it one of the most unforgiving jets in Soviet service, a machine that punished even minor mistakes. F-100 Canuck was Canada's all-weather interceptor, but its early models were notorious for icing problems and engine flameouts. Pilots nicknamed it the Widowmaker, after a series of fatal crashes in cold weather. The heavy controls and poor climb rate made recovery from stalls difficult, and the Canucks' reputation for danger in icy conditions lingered long after improvements. Saab 35. Drachen introduced a double delta wing for high-speed performance, but pilots faced unique rotation accidents during takeoff. The abrupt pitch-up tendency could cause loss of control if not handled precisely, and early Drachens suffered from unreliable landing gear. Swedish pilots respected its speed, but dreaded the unpredictable takeoff behavior, knowing a split-second error could end in disaster. Northrop F-5A was designed as a lightweight fighter, but its underpowered engines and limited avionics made it a challenge in combat. Pilots reported frequent compressor stalls and poor acceleration, especially at altitude. The F-5A's light construction made it vulnerable to battle damage, and several air forces experienced high crash rates during training. The jet's reputation for being unforgiving in a dogfight stuck with it for years. Hawker Hunter, early, was a British classic, but initial versions suffered from severe compressor stalls and engine surges. Pilots had to manage throttle changes carefully to avoid sudden power loss, and the early ejection seat was unreliable. Several fatal accidents occurred during test flights, and the Hunter's reputation for engine trouble lingered even after upgrades. De Havilland Venom was a British jet fighter bomber with a reputation for engine overheating and fuel leaks. Pilots faced frequent flameouts and fires, especially during ground attack missions. The Venom's limited range and unreliable systems made it unpopular for long sorties. Maintenance crews struggled with persistent oil leaks and difficult engine access, making the Venom a burden for both pilots and ground staff. Mirage 5, early exports, was a ground attack variant of the Mirage 3, but underpowered engines and limited avionics frustrated pilots. The aircraft's poor acceleration and climb rate made it vulnerable in combat. Export customers reported frequent maintenance issues and unreliable weapon systems. Many air forces quickly sought upgrades or replacements, and the early Mirage 5 was rarely a favorite among its crew. Mirage F-1, early blocks, introduced a new wing and engine, but pilots encountered engine surges and unreliable afterburners. The aircraft's handling at low speeds was tricky, and several accidents occurred during approach and landing. Early avionics were prone to failure, complicating navigation and targeting. Later blocks improved reliability, but the first Mirage F-1s were not well liked by their pilots. J-6, China's MiG-19 copy, inherited all the Soviet original's flaws: short engine life, instability, and poor handling. Chinese pilots reported frequent flameouts and dangerous control issues at high speed. The J-6's limited avionics and unreliable hydraulics made it difficult to fly safely. Despite massive production, few pilots had fond memories of the J-6's demanding flight characteristics. F-7, China's early MiG-21 derivative, was even less popular than the Soviet original. Pilots complained of unreliable engines, poor cockpit visibility, and dangerous low-speed handling. The aircraft's limited range and basic avionics made it unsuitable for modern combat. High accident rates during training and operations led many air forces to retire the F-7 as soon as possible. J-8 early was China's first indigenous interceptor, but its poor avionics and handling issues frustrated pilots. The aircraft's large size and weak engines made it sluggish in combat. Early radar systems were unreliable, and pilots struggled with limited situational awareness. The J-8's accident rate was high, and improvements came slowly, leaving many crews wary of its performance. Su-9 Fishpot was a Soviet interceptor with poor weapons and limited range. Pilots struggled with unreliable radar and a cramped cockpit. The aircraft's high landing speed and poor low-speed handling made it difficult to operate from many airfields. The Su-9's lack of all-weather capability and frequent system failures led to its quick replacement by more advanced designs. Su-11 was a little-known Soviet interceptor that was quickly cancelled due to persistent technical problems. Pilots faced unreliable engines, poor radar, and difficult handling at high speeds. The aircraft's limited weapons and short range made it ineffective in its intended role. Few Su-11s were built, and most crews were relieved when the type was withdrawn from service. F-8 Crusader was a US Navy carrier fighter known for its maintenance headaches and high accident rate. The variable incidence wing and complex systems required constant attention. Carrier landings were especially hazardous, with many accidents caused by nose gear collapse or hook failures. Pilots respected its dogfighting ability, but dreaded its unpredictable handling on approach, and the "last of the gunfighters" nickname came with a price. MiG-21, early, was a revolutionary design, but pilots quickly learned to fear its flameouts and poor low-speed performance. The aircraft delta wing made it unforgiving during takeoff and landing, and engine failures were common. The cramped cockpit and limited visibility added to the challenge. Many air forces experienced high accident rates, especially during training, and the MiG-21's reputation for being a flying coffin was well earned. The MiG-23 was a swing-wing fighter with a reputation for instability and maintenance nightmares. Pilots struggled with abrupt pitch changes and dangerous spins at low speed. The aircraft's complex variable geometry wings and unreliable avionics led to frequent accidents. Even Soviet pilots preferred the older MiG-21, and the MiG-23's reputation for unpredictability persisted throughout its service. The fear of sudden loss of control haunted every sortie. F-100 Super Sabre was the first US fighter to break the sound barrier in level flight, but pilots called it the Hun for its deadly yaw instability. The aircraft was prone to violent spins and roll coupling, especially during high-speed maneuvers. Accident rates were high, with many losses during takeoff and landing. Later modifications improved safety, but the F-100's reputation for danger never faded. Pilots described flying it as riding a wild horse you couldn't trust. F-111B was intended as the Navy's carrier-based fleet defense fighter, but its overweight design and poor handling doomed it. Pilots struggled with sluggish controls and long takeoff runs, making carrier operations hazardous. The aircraft's complex swing-wing mechanism was prone to failure, and the F-111B was quickly cancelled after repeated accidents and pilot complaints. The sense of relief when the program ended was widespread among carrier aviators. Convair F-2Y Sea Dart was an experimental supersonic seaplane fighter that proved nearly unflyable. Pilots faced violent vibrations and instability during takeoff and landing on water. The hydro-ski design caused the aircraft to bounce uncontrollably, and one prototype broke apart during a test flight. The Sea Dart's dangerous handling and fatal accidents led to its rapid cancellation, and few regretted its demise. Avro Canada CF-105 Arrow was a technological marvel, but its costly development and political controversy led to abrupt cancellation. Pilots admired its speed and climb rate, but the program's sudden end left crews frustrated and angry. The destruction of prototypes and blueprints meant years of work vanished overnight. The Arrow became a symbol of lost potential and wasted effort. The bitterness over its cancellation still sparks debate today. F-105 Thunder Chief, known as the Thud, was infamous in Vietnam for its high loss rate. Over 50% of deployed aircraft were lost. Pilots faced intense anti-aircraft fire, unreliable systems, and dangerous low-level bombing runs. The aircraft's heavy weight and poor maneuverability made it vulnerable in combat. Survivors remembered the Thud as a punishing, unforgiving jet that demanded everything from its pilots,
Flying the F-105 was a test of nerve and luck.